Hello, my name is Russell Myers, independent for U.S. President for 2024. A few weeks ago, I'm sure you're aware, whether you want to be or not, that there was a debate between incumbent President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. And this is the first chance that I have had to record and upload a response to that debate. I am not going to comment on the personal performance of the candidates, except to say that each one accused the other one of lying. And to be honest, this was accurate coming from both sides. But we'll get into some of that. So I am going to focus on the issues that arose during the debate, which is actually more of a challenge than you think, because overall, the entire debate was not intended, like many things in our media, it was not intended to be informative on the issues. It was intended to get an emotional response from the candidates and from the viewers. But there were things that did get addressed. So let's start with the economy. Both candidates made claims that under their administrations, the economy has done extremely well. Now, most Americans, you and I, that live in the real economy, are well aware that the economy has not been doing well for a number of years. Americans are struggling to pay their bills, to keep a roof over their head, to buy groceries. People are working multiple jobs, getting hours and benefits cut. And when you get benefits cut, if you want to retain those benefits, it winds up costing you more money to replace them, even as your income goes down. So Joe Biden made the claim that inflation has come down to 3.4%, 3.5%, something like that. Okay, fine. Inflation has come down. That doesn't mean prices are coming down. Inflation coming down to 3.4% or whatever does not mean prices have come down by that percentage. This is inflation on top of, depending on the sources, from 21, 22 to 30% in the past 4 years. So the 3% is on top of that. That is a 3%, 3.4% higher than last year. So you're talking about, you are paying 33.4, 33.5% more for everything. Rent, food, fuel, utilities, etc., than you were 4 years ago. So his claims that the economy has improved, your wages have not gone up. There may be anecdotal claims that their income has increased by over 30% in 4 years, but that has nothing to do, in those anecdotal instances, it has nothing to do with the administration at all. So all of this inflation is the devaluation of the dollar. It means that your dollar, if you spend $100, what was $100 4 years ago is now worth, 60 some dollars now. So that is what that really means. And most of us are quite intensely aware of this in our daily lives. Trump claimed that the economy did well under him. No, it didn't. In 2019, we saw over 9,600 retail outlet closures. Now, these were large. This was only measuring large retail outlets, mostly corporate outlets. This is not counting how many small businesses went out of business, but 9,600 retail outlet closures in 2019 alone, what some economists were calling the retail apocalypse. It was the greatest number of retail closures in U.S. history up to that point. Now, you do have to remember that this was before the events of 2020. So, no, this happened. Some people will claim that this is because of an increase in online retail sales, and that is not true. Retail sales in 2019 accounted for about 10% of retail sales, which was about the same as 2018, 2017. It had remained at that level for a number of years. So no, there wasn't this sudden spike in 2019. Yes, we saw an increase in retail, online sales in 2020 for obvious reasons, but not in 2019. Accompanying those 9,600 closures, jobs were eliminated. And this was all because of decreased consumer spending. Why? In volume. Even if the dollar amount reflected in GDP remained constant or even went up, what consumers were getting was less than what they had gotten a year prior, so they were effectively spending less, or spending the same and getting less. Meanwhile, many thousands of people had their incomes suddenly cut out from under them. Anyway, also as a result of this, if you close down retail outlets, well, now you don't need truck drivers to deliver goods to stores. So over 200 trucking companies went out of business in 2019. So again, carrying living wage jobs in this case that were eliminated, which caused big problems with the loss of qualified truckers in 2020, 2021, and we're still seeing a shortage of truckers that just have chosen not to return to that profession. And I've done videos on my other channel about truckers and how they don't earn as much as they used to. Anyway, by September of 2019, the Federal Reserve began what was called the repo market bailout. This was a means of bailing out struggling and failing banks. And that program continued until February or March of 2022, when it was replaced by a short-term lending program which lasted for 1 year by the Federal Reserve to keep these banks afloat. Once that program ended in February or March of 2023 was when we started seeing this string of bank failures. At this point, the Federal Reserve has stated that 65 banks are at risk of failing. And when you talk about how the Federal Reserve defines a bank, that doesn't mean bank branches. You can have a bank, a regional bank that has multiple locations in your city, but that is considered one bank. It is a sub, the branches are just sub branches of that main bank. So these banks have unrealized losses of over $500 billion right now, and that is going to get worse. All economists agree that these banks have so much exposure to debt, mostly commercial real estate debt at this time, that they are at risk of closing. So, all right, so no, the economy is not and has not been doing well. Let's go to employment. Joe Biden likes to make the claim that unemployment is at 3.4%, I think, right now. But let me explain. And Donald Trump has made claims about the unemployment under his administration as well. Well, first of all, all of these claims of jobs being created under the Biden administration are not really jobs being created. These are positions that closed down during 2020 and 2021, and now those positions have been restored. So that's not creating new jobs, that's restoring jobs that had existed previously. The other thing I want to point out is that if you talk about, do you know what it takes for you to be considered employed legally, politically? That means that you can be working 1 hour a week at minimum wage and you are considered employed. To look at the real numbers, which I've done, is you have to look at whether people are making a living wage. Employed doesn't mean you can pay the bills. The Department of Labor has the number being quoted all the time by the media, by the government, as the U3 unemployment rate. Well, the Department of Labor also has a U6 unemployment rate, and that measures how many people are underemployed. And that number is drastically higher than the U3 unemployment rate. This means people that are working part-time that want to be working full-time, people that are just not able to pay the bills, whatever, from what they're earning from their jobs. And then you've got the labor participation rate. How many people that are employed of employable age and condition that are in the labor force. And for years now, including under the Trump administration, that number has been the lowest it has been since the early 1970s. Now, the reason for it being that low back in the early 1970s are very different from the reasons that it's so low today. Some of the reasons can carry over, but overall, no. It was a lot more common for one income to support a family back then, so that you know, such as a stay-at-home housewife, did not have to work back then. But that's not the situation that is common today. It typically takes multiple incomes to support a household where it used to take only one. Anyway, so that covers employment. Neither one of them has any plan to actually address this issue. Wages have remained stagnant, or effective wages have gone down. And we know this. We all know this. I do invite you to look at my policies on my website and look at how I would deal with this, because I would create millions of living wage jobs and address these problems with the cost of living, which is more important than chasing the minimum wage. The minimum wage should be, federal minimum wage should be increased. But if we are not controlling the cost of living in relation to income, then we are never going to solve this problem. And I have plans to address those issues. Let's go to their medication plans. It was interesting when Joe Biden entered office that Donald Trump had a medication price reduction plan, a drug price reduction plan in place. Joe Biden threw that out and took his time, and a number of months later put a new program in place which was amazingly similar to the Trump plan. Let me explain what both of their plans entail. Yes, both of their plans reduce the price of medications, prescription medications. But that means what you pay when you get up to the pharmacy counter. What they don't do is reduce how much the drug companies are charging for that drug. Instead, these programs are subsidies for the drug companies. The government pays the drug company directly for a percentage of how much your medication costs. So you are still paying for it through your taxes. Even if you don't take any prescription medication at all, you are still paying money that goes to the drug companies. I have different plans for dealing with that, including putting limits on by percentage of how much the profit the drug companies can make, and this goes along with other corporations. And I would not be against nationalizing the drug companies if that is what it takes. If they want to fight, fine, we can fight. Let's go. All right, so that would be a good idea. All of these are workable. Not without a fight, but they're workable. Social Security. Donald Trump was accusing Joe Biden that Joe Biden is going to destroy Social Security. Neither one really announced any realistic plans for saving Social Security. One of the first things that we need to do to save Social Security is to eliminate the income cap. The income cap means that you pay a certain percentage of your income into Social Security through your wages. Wages. The thing to notice about this is that other forms of income, such as capital gains, pay nothing into Social Security, not a penny. That needs to change as well. But your wages up to $160,000 pay a percentage into Social Security. If you make $1 million a year, you pay the same as a person that makes $160,000. You make $50 million, $500 million, $1 billion a year, you pay the same amount as the person that makes $160,000 a year. That needs to change. That cap needs to be not raised, but eliminated completely. It needs to be thrown out the window. Yes, people that make that much money do benefit from Social Security. Indirectly, they benefit from it. So we need to get rid of that cap. Taxes, government spending. Now, I am not against paying taxes. I am not against government spending. Absolutely not. We need these things. Millions of jobs rely on these things. But what I do object to is where our taxes go to. Where the debt keeps rising and rising. And people will say, oh, well, taxes don't fund government spending. Yes, they do. Eventually they do. Not directly, but they do. You keep driving up the debt. How does that debt get paid off? By taxes. But, all right, so I object to our taxes, our government debt being used to fund wars in countries that we have no business being in, wars that could have been prevented if we had not gotten involved. The ever-expanding, bloated military budget increasing year after year after year. I object to the government funding non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as, say, the National Endowment for Democracy. All of these are fronts for CIA operations to propagandize and overthrow foreign governments. I object to government spending subsidizing corporate welfare, paying government welfare for oil companies, weapons manufacturers, and drug companies, etc., etc. I am against all of this. If we are going to pay that much into any industry, that industry should be nationalized to reduce the cost, to provide direct government jobs to the people so that their incomes are a living wage, and so that any profits that are made by those industries go directly back into the public coffers so that we can keep a cycle going. Our population is aging. And this goes back to Social Security. Our population is aging. There are fewer people paying in to these things, into taxes, to pay off debt, to pay for Social Security. So this cycle has to stop. We cannot keep subsidizing. We never should have been subsidizing handing out corporate welfare. This is all the people that talk about the free market. Well, okay, let's go with that. Okay, you want to talk about free market, but they don't want to give up their subsidies. They don't want to give up their welfare. To bounce back to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all come under the same umbrella. Trump, his idea of fixing Social Security is to throw immigrants off of Social Security or whatever. Well, number one, the percentage of immigrants that are on Social Security getting any kind of these benefits is only a fraction of the number of immigrants that are here. And second, okay, so if we have 10 million immigrants, we're a nation of 330 million people. So put that into perspective. What percentage of 340 million people is 10 million? All right, so you take that percentage, then you cut how many are actually receiving any kind of assistance, and you have single digit, people, the percentage is single digits of anybody actually getting anything. So there's the truth. You're not going to save Social Security by doing that. It's not going to happen. This is all just racism, and yes, I'll say it. It's racism, and it is a ploy. It is playing on your emotions. It is not reflecting reality. Okay? Lastly, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, Taiwan, China. You look at how much money we have sent to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. We have nothing to do with these things. Trump says that he will, of course, Biden just wants to keep on and on and on sending more and more weapons, whatever it takes, for as long as it takes, at your expense. Trump says that he would tell Ukraine if they won't negotiate that we will reduce, not stop, reduce how much aid that we are providing. And he says that he will, if Russia won't negotiate, will increase how much we're sending. The problem here now is not how much money is getting spent, because much of the money that has been allocated for Ukraine goes to weapons that have not been produced and won't be produced for many years because our production isn't high enough to send these things. This is just welfare for the weapons manufacturers. That's it. In fact, the number of weapons and ammunition that we have sent over there has weakened our own defense and will continue to do so. Neither one of them talk about making Ukraine, realistically, making Ukraine and Russia sit down and talk, or Gaza and Israel, or Taiwan and China, which, by the way, Taiwan is part of China. But we have had a military presence on Taiwan for decades. That means we have military personnel in China to train and advise Taiwanese military on how to attack China. By the way, Western polling has shown that close to 90%, maybe over 90%, depending on the poll, of Taiwanese do not want to secede from China. Which makes sense because China is their biggest trading partner by far. China doesn't need to invade Taiwan. All they have to do is stop trading with them. And that conflict is over. But we're going to keep sending money, sending weapons, sending our own personnel over there to try and incite another conflict. We will keep sending weapons to Israel, even as Israel is conducting what can only be termed a genocide. So, this is my response to all of this. I know this has been a long one, but it has been warranted. Again, please take a look at my website, look at my policies, and see just what realistic reform actually means that would create jobs, promote peace, promote prosperity in real terms. Because where we're going, at this point, all economists agree we are headed for a major fall. Any economist that says otherwise, you really have to look at their motivations because it's purely political and it is not based in reality. Any politician that tells you that we are not headed for a fall is lying to your face. We have to fix this. And there is neither one of these candidates, neither Trump nor Biden, has any realistic plan to get us out of any of this. So, please take a look at my policies, share this video, talk about these subjects far and wide. You do have options other than those two. But you have to be brave enough to make that decision. To make a decision other than those two. Because if no matter which one of those two wins, we lose. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day.